Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. I am LB Hannes. Any pronouns work for me. As a gender fluid person, I go by all of them. They all feel right to me. Thank you for coming into this caring circle of people, journeying with curiosity. May we find meaning together.
I was 11 years old in May of 1977. My two best friends and I walked to Cinema 150, our local movie theater in Santa Clara, California, to watch the new movie that everyone was raving about. We shared a bucket of salty popcorn in the darkened theater and were soon completely lost in the story and George Lucas's special effects as the Rebel Alliance fought against the authoritarian galactic empire. We laughed and worried and fretted along with R2-D2 and C-3PO, and cheered for Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker. On our walk home, we talked about Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. How had they become so powerful? How had they learned to use the Force? And what had happened to make Vader become so evil, while Obi-Wan became noble and wise and chose to use his powers for good? Those were big questions. Human beings have been asking questions and creating stories about good and evil for thousands of years. What are the forces that shape us? How do our life circumstances and our choices impact what kind of people we become? And what kind of world we create together? Unitarian Universalism affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person. For me, that means that each person, each of us, is born worthy of love without having to do anything to earn it. We have within us the essence of humanity. Not original sin. Some would say original blessing. When we act in ways that honor and respect the humanity of others and our place in this incredible interdependent web, when we keep love at the center, then our own humanity is strengthened. When we deny someone else's humanity, or when we disregard the many other beings with which we live, then part of our humanity is lost too. There's a reason why characters such as Voldemort in Harry Potter or Darth Vader in Star Wars are created as other than fully human. Their greed and thirst for power shaped who they became. Each day, we are asked to make small and large decisions, often ethical choices. Some of those choices may cost us part of our very humanity, while some choices can help us become more whole. Some of you may remember our friend and colleague, Reverend Dr. Leonisa Ardizzone. She is a community minister who runs the Peace Education Center of the Hudson Valley. She is also a huge Star Wars fan, even if she could do without Jar Jar Binks or some of the acting. In her Substack post called Peace and Praxis, she writes about recently seeing the 20th anniversary re-release of Revenge of the Sith with her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. She writes, "In Revenge of the Sith, as we watch Palpatine be his rotten, bleep self, I was thinking so much about how humans fall prey to charismatic leaders or leaders who find our weaknesses and use them to pull us into their tangled web of deceit, to their dark and dangerous side." On our way out of the theater, she continues, the three of us were reflecting on how the Palpatine shenanigans seemed quite similar to what our leader is doing right now. We wondered if George Lucas was like, now seems like a good time to show this one again. It's compelling to watch a power-hungry sociopath run the show and bring mindless or hurting or confused people into his fold. It's better to watch it on screen, though, not in real life. She continues, the powerful message, though, comes at the end of the film when we witness the head-to-head battles between Yoda and Palpatine and Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. You see the venom and hate and anger in the eyes of those operating from the dark force, while the Jedi countenances are ones of acceptance and love. I really needed to see that, Leonisa concludes. There is so much in the world that crushes my spirit on a daily basis, and I need regular reminders that my work is grounded in love. Doing the work of peace and justice and transformation requires love, and I need to remember that over and over again.
One of my favorite cars of all time, we called Chewbacca because it was this old white Cherokee Sport that sounded like Chewbacca when I drove it. I just remembered that car. I love that thing so much. I'll spare you from my impression of a Chewbacca. I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between reform and revolution. A reform movement seeks to improve or change aspects of an existing system or society through incremental changes, typically within the existing framework. A revolutionary movement, on the other hand, aims for a radical and fundamental transformation of the existing social, political, or economic order, often by overthrowing the current power structure. Consider this excerpt from an address delivered at Wells Memorial Hall in Boston, Massachusetts on January 26, 1896, by Daniel De Leon, a Caracan American socialist newspaper editor, politician, Marxist theoretician, and trade union organizer. He says, reform. Take, for instance, a poodle. You can reform him in a lot of ways. You can shave his whole body and leave a tassel at the tip of his tail. You may bore a hole through each ear and tie a blue bow on one and a red bow on the other. You may put a brass collar around his neck with your initials on and a trim little blanket on his back. Yet, throughout, a poodle he was, and a poodle he remains. Each of these changes probably wrought a corresponding change in the poodle's life. When shorn of all his hair except a tassel at the tail's tip, he was owned by a wag who probably cared only for the fun he could get out of his pet. When he appears gaily decked in bows, probably his young mistress' attachment is of tenderer sort, when later we see him in the fancier outfit. The treatment he receives and the uses he is put to may be yet again, and probably are, different. Each of these transformations or stages may mark a veritable epoch in the poodle's existence, and yet, essentially, a poodle he was, a poodle he is, and a poodle he will remain. That is reform. Revolution. But when we look back myriads of years or project ourselves into far future physical cataclysms and trace the development of animal life from the invertebrate to the vertebrate, from the lizard to the bird, from the quadruped and the mammal, till we come to the prototype of the poodle, and finally reach the poodle himself. And so forward, then, do we find radical changes at each step, changes from within that alter the very essence of his being, and that put or will put upon him each time a stamp that alters the very system of his existence. That is revolution. So with society, whenever a change leaves the internal mechanism untouched, we have reform. Whenever the internal mechanism is changed, we have revolution. So in my line of work as a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, or a DEI consultant, the day-to-day work is more about the work of reform, and I know that, and I accept that. About teaching and coaching people through the incremental change work within the existing structures of work and organizational functions. This reform work is important and has been going on for a long time now. I'll spare you the long Dr. LB spiel, but the legacy of DEI work is rooted back to the 50s and 60s with integration, the creation of affirmative action, equal employment opportunity laws, and the Civil Rights Act. This work was the direct result of protests and disruption to the status quo that were happening at the time, and the movements, at all of them, the civil rights movement, feminism, disability rights, LGBT rights. All of this disruption and protests were causing social consciousness and disrupting the status quo, challenging the social, political, and economic order. And we saw and have experienced the result of those efforts, and so many of the rights we've had and still have over the last 60 years continue to be a result for ongoing push for change. In the reform efforts, the changing of laws and cultural understanding has improved life for some of us, but the existing framework has changed very little. And that existing framework of power and who is in control never intended for many of us to be involved or actually have power. And we can see that existing framework of white, hetero, patriarchy, oligarchy on display in full force right now. Now, I don't think that reform and revolution are binaries. I actually reject most binaries, except for one really important one, except for the binary between blue cheese and ranch. I think that blue cheese is the superior, far superior condiment. I won't yuck anybody's yum. I'm willing to have a dialogue about it, but beyond that binary, most things are not black and white, either or. But so many of us have been taught and spent our time in the space of reform efforts and have spent far less time thinking, dreaming, acting in revolutionary ways through no fault of our own. So now is the time, I believe, for us to sharpen our skills for revolution, whatever that looks like. And I don't mean overthrow the government yet, but we can do things that prepare us for what revolution might bring. Right now, for me at least, this brings up more questions than answers about what it might look like. But the answers I do have look like relying less on the existing framework as much as I can, to learn and grow in ways that expand and push beyond what I have been told works, and to do so in as many ways as I can think of. Yes, there is learning and growing in the areas of political revolutionary thinking. I've been a member of Democratic Socialists of America for a while now, and a lot of their work has pushed my thinking and activism as it relates to political change. But a key part of the changes politically are rooted in the everyday knowledge and skills we need to have to survive and thrive in a new framework, one that doesn't rely solely on the old one for our fundamental needs and well-being. Reverend Lynn early talked about the Survive and Thrive team, and Reverend Wendy and I have been talking about it for a while, and that's what our chats have resulted in, this Survive and Thrive team. And Lynn read the purpose of the Survive and Thrive team, but I'll read it again because we don't hear enough of what it takes to do revolutionary work, and I want you all to hear what we're trying to do and possibly join us. We aim to build a community of practice on the knowledge, tools, skills, and spirituality needed to both survive and thrive. This is not just about survival. We need joy. We need thriving. under the constant threats coming from the current administration. We'll learn new ways of living in the world that don't rely on unethical institutional structures, but rather on each other, and the networks we build and possibilities of being that have yet to be imagined. Some of the topics we have started to brainstorm include, but are certainly not limited to, survival skills in terms of food prep, water, medicine, fire building, nonviolence resistance training, civil disobedience training, woodworking, sharing intergenerational wisdom, a no stress, no judgment art for revolutionary workshop, playtime, dancing, and poetry sharing, somatic therapies, and like we said earlier, we're going to start with a seasonal offering, growing what we eat and sharing what we sow. So rooted in revolutionary wisdom, the offerings through the Survive and Thrive team aim to teach us all how to resist the forces that strive to cause harm and destruction, while strengthening a Unitarian vision as we provide opportunities for practice for a better world. So this group is very much in formation, and we welcome questions, help, skill sharing, ideas. Come next week. We want as many folks participating as possible. There are so many ways to add to the list I just mentioned, and we're excited to see what we can become together.
Imagining and creating ways to survive and thrive together are such important tools, and how we will become in the days ahead. And this morning, I invite you to consider who and how you are in this moment. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How have you become who you are today? Has it been a linear path or a twisty trail? Were there accidents or surprises, or has your becoming you been mostly intentional? What are the places and who are the people, the animals and the plants that have been part of your becoming? Maybe for you it is fairly easy to think of people who have nurtured you, offering care and encouragement. Maybe for you, your memories or current situation include not having what you need, or not being able to trust that others will be there for them when you need them. Be there for you when you need them. Maybe you have had or have teachers and mentors who provide a fantastic mix of challenge and support. Maybe the lessons that helped shape you came from peers or from your own lived experience. Some of us became who we are right now, partly because we were offered an opportunity along the way and we said, sure, I'll try that. Some of us became who we are right now partly because we needed to struggle with adversities or challenges or tremendous losses. Some among us could share stories about when we set a goal and made a plan and moved toward that goal a bit at a time, not always smoothly, and that through intentional, chosen hard work, we became somehow different than we had been. Some among us would share stories of when we experienced the holy or the mystery moving in our lives, inviting us and accompanying us on a journey of becoming. All of these things and more are part of how we become. I invite us to consider these things because they're not just the story of our past, but they inform who and how we are becoming right now. The stories of how we become include things that happen around us and to us, but they're also about how we respond and the things that happen through us. They might be stories of reform or revolution. They might be stories of complex adventures or quiet unfolding. Ada Limon is a Latina poet laureate who lives in California. Many of her poems are reflections on becoming and on change. In her poem, Instructions on Not Giving Up, she writes, "More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy-colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains, it's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come. Patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuously living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the trees seem to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. How do we choose to respond in these current times? As Master Yoda said in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, your path you must decide. We cannot choose what happens to us. We do choose how we will respond. Let us use our energies for good. Reverend Leonisa reminds us that the work of creating peace and justice, the work of creating the world of which we dream, must be grounded in love. On the wall of her office hangs a quote from Argentinian Marxist revolutionary physician and diplomat Ernesto Che Guevara. He said, "At the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love. It is impossible to think of a genuine revolutionary lacking this quality." There is so much at stake, dear ones. So let us be intentional about who and how we are becoming. Let us be about our work and play of imagining and creating with care. Let us deepen our capacities for listening to one another, for showing up with care and compassion, for being generous, for holding the complexities of both and that are within us and among us. Both and is a strength, not a threat. Let us, as the poet said, return to the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us. Whether we are working for reform or revolution, for healing or just gently being, let us use all our powers for good. And may the fourth be with you. Salam, shalom, amen, ashe, namaste, and blessed